All right, everyone. Very pleased to welcome Coach Lew Porchiazzo from the University of Michigan. He's the Assistant Director of Strength and Conditioning for Olympic sports there. This is a great posting for me because this is my first opportunity in strength and conditioning was with Lew, with Caitlin Haycott, with Jason Cole, Bo Sandoval, Mike Favor, all at the University of Michigan at that time. So really wonderful to have these guys on. They run an incredible program that's only gotten better over the years, and there's no one better than Lew to speak about this program, and that's why he's with us today. Also, we should note that Lew is the first one to wear a collared shirt on any of these videos, which just speaks to the level of detail that the University of Michigan has. So looking sharp, looking very sharp. So I'll turn the mic over to Lew straight away, just to introduce himself a bit more broadly, maybe talk about your background, some of the mentors that perhaps you had along the way, and how you ended up at the University of Michigan.
Sure. Yeah. So I appreciate you recognizing the college shirt. I think it's important to dress for success and to look the part that you're working towards versus the role that you're in. So I appreciate you observing that and the M here on the chest.
Yes.
And so a little bit about myself. Again, Lew Porchiazzo. I've been at the University of Michigan now for 14 years, a little over 14 years. And so it's been a really, really fun ride for me. I started at Michigan in the summer of 2009. Mike Favor, our current director, my boss, has been a tremendous mentor for me. I actually worked with Mike and Bo Sandoval at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs as an intern in the winter of 2009 and learned a lot about what I knew and what I didn't know, especially. And it was just a matter of good timing, good fortune when I left there for another internship at Baylor University. Mike took the position here as director of strength and conditioning. So good timing, good fortune. He was looking to hire a GA. And personally for myself, that's exactly what I was looking for. It was a GA position. And so the stars kind of aligned in that sense. And when he offered me the job, I thought about it for about 3 seconds, hopped in my car and drove my way up from Texas, where I spent the summer of '09 to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I've been since. And so it's been a steady rise through the hierarchy, if you will, of our department. As a GA, came in as a low person on the totem pole and slowly worked my way up to full-time assistant when I finished my master's, and then promoted a few years after that to head strength and conditioning coach, now to my current title and position of assistant director. And so in that, I support our department and kind of turn towards Mike as his direct assistant and right hand, to make sure that our department is providing the services necessary to our student athletes, and that there's no stone left unturned for the resources that we provide and how we function to integrate within our greater athletic department team. And that's our student athlete health and welfare team, but athletics as a whole and under the entire umbrella of the University of Michigan. And so it's something that I don't take lightly, and I try to be a good steward of our space, whether it's the beautiful conference room I'm in or our weight room just above us. It's important for all of us to own our role within Michigan and our role within athletic performance and strength and conditioning, to ensure that we keep moving the needle forward and competing for championships at the highest level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I think one thing I want to point out straight away, really, for any young professional who might be watching this video is the ability to read between the lines when you look at potential internships that are out there and the staff members that make up the department that you might be involved with. At the University of Michigan, they've had a very steady group of core coaches that have stayed there for a long time. And that not only speaks to the working environment at the University of Michigan to retain coaches like Coach Lew here, or just the working environment within the department itself. And since Lew has seen the development of athletics at the University of Michigan across 14 years, he's seen the transition of multiple teams from maybe club sports into varsity level sports and stuff like that. To have that history to lean on, to have conversations about, there's a lot of perspective in that department. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. Having been at Michigan and knowing that about you guys, that's a really important thing to know as a young professional, what you're stepping into. So that's great. So let's talk about then these interns, the internship program that you run. Taking more of a 30,000-foot view and looking at the responsibilities, a typical week, the typical flow, knowing that they could be coming in the summer, the spring, the winter, whenever. What do those responsibilities typically look like, and what will intern coaches be tasked with doing on a daily basis, generally speaking?
Sure. Yeah. So really our internship is about your own development, and it's about your development as a professional in preparation for the next opportunity in your career. And it's mutually beneficial for us because you do help assist in providing service to our student athletes and service to Michigan. And so I'd say, generally speaking, almost regardless of semester, with variances in competitive season and voluntary versus required training sessions and such, I think it's important to note that we typically look for 30 hours a week as a kind of required minimum. There's some exceptions that we've made over the years for students that are just pinched for time, but really show a vested interest in the field and have the ability to commit close to, maybe just shy of, but close to 30 hours per week. But ultimately, the more time that you spend with us, the better off you're going to be in the long run. To an extent, right? There is diminished returns if you're spending 80 hours a week in a place. Maybe 80 is a little bit overkill, but certainly 35 is better than 30, and 30 is better than 25, and so on. And so I think it's important to understand that for us, you have access to a staff of 11 full-time strength coaches. You have access to 20 plus sports that come through our main facility, and an additional about 10 sports that train out of various other facilities across campus that fall underneath our Olympic sports umbrella, and the coaches that work with them to be able to build and hone in the craft of coaching athletes and enhancing their athletic performance. And so when I think about what the day in, day out looks like, it's education sessions covering a variety of different topics, which you can find on My Momentum. And that's spotting. It's coaching considerations like how to place yourself on the floor to see as many people as immediately as possible, how to project your voice, how to direct a message, how to corral a group if they're just missing the mark on what's required out of them during that session. It's exercise technique in powerlifting and weightlifting movements. It's programming principles and periodization. It's speed and change direction. It's technology, and all the different factors that make up a successful practitioner in the field of strength and conditioning. And so there's formalized education and curriculum around those various topics, led by Joe Marr, who's our intern coordinator and does a great job, along with Trevor Klump, myself, Kate Smith, now formerly Haycock, Mike Favor, and the rest of our staff. We all contribute overall to the intern experience and into honestly into your development as a professional. And so aside from that curriculum, aside from actively engaging with our staff and building relationships organically through time spent and conversation spent, there's opportunity to coach student athletes, and that's really important to us. Obviously, initially on day one, there's no expectation to immediately jump in and start coaching anyone. It's get in, observe, learn the basics, learn what we're trying to learn, where we are in the competitive year, what we're trying to accomplish, and how we're trying to get there. And then start to speak up once you start to feel comfortable and confident through more time spent with coaches, more time spent through education, and more time spent with student athletes to be able to make a difference in how they're carrying out their training. You know as well as I do, if you have 50 plus student athletes in a room and there's 2 or 3 coaches, that additional set of eyes and an additional set of hands for 4 or 5 coaches makes a big difference. And you can really catch somebody that might otherwise be missed if the student athlete to coach ratio just isn't what it could be or is or what it needs to be in that time. And so there's opportunity to actively engage with our student athletes once you show the competency and confidence to do so. And we'll encourage you to do that when the time is right, if you really struggle to do that. So those are some of the key tenets for us as a staff that looks to help build practitioners that are ready to contribute at a higher level, not only here by the time they're done, but elsewhere in an elevated capacity.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we talked about this many times on different videos on Connect here, but those intern coaches, and we're going to talk about the successful ones in a second here, but those intern coaches who are most successful are the ones that they spend some time getting used to the environment, but as soon as they have, again, that confidence and competence to step in, they're in, and they're not afraid to make those mistakes, because that's when the most learning happens on the other side of the mistake curve. And you can really apply yourself to being valuable as part of that staff. And I think what you said as well about having an extra set of eyes in a large group, certainly it helps the efficiency and the value in the session, but it also, for a lot of student athletes, improves the student athlete experience just in general, of knowing that you have somebody else who's kind of looking out for you, somebody else who's interested and invested in your development, not necessarily just the full-time staff member. So stepping into the role of, whether that's in your head or not, the full-time strength conditioning coach mentality, and being an extension of the staff. The sooner you do that, the sooner you're probably going to land a job as a full-time strength conditioning coach, or potentially be hired on if a position opens up. So that's excellent. It's wonderful to hear. You obviously mentioned Coach Joe Mara and Trevor Klump there as well. So speaking about that kind of curriculum that you talked about, those actual education sessions, I wonder if you could paint even more of a picture about those sessions, what they look like. Are they always held in the weight room? Are some held in the room behind you? Things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So Joe does a great job of really kind of building out the syllabus, if you will. And there's some flexibility in there. Think about it more on a weekly basis. And so each week throughout the course of roughly a 15-week semester, there's education sessions that are penciled in. And essentially we divvy them up amongst our staff. So some Joe will lead, some will Trevor will lead, Kate, myself, so on. Mike typically gives a presentation about being a collegiate strength and conditioning coach and what it takes from his perspective as the person that runs the department and is responsible ultimately for our success and our hiring and retention of really talented people. And so Joe does a great job of corralling all of that information and delivering it to not only our interns, but also to our staff to ensure that we know that by the end of week 3 that they've covered X, Y, and Z topics, and therefore should have the ability to contribute in those specific areas. That's why we typically start with some basic topics: facility maintenance, how to operate the equipment, how to ensure that the room is appropriately set up and broken down, that they know how to adjust the fans, how to turn on the lights, where the restrooms are. Some of the basic things that we don't want to take for granted in case somebody asks the question, hey, where's the bathroom? Or hey, it's super hot in here. Can we turn up the fans? Or whatever the case is. And so it's spotting so that they can immediately jump in and start to actively spot our student athletes on exercises that it's appropriate to ensure that they start to build relationships with them and engage with the student athletes instead of standing off to the side with their arms crossed or hands tucked in front of them or behind their back or in their pocket or kind of off in a corner, if you will. And so I think those education sessions and the knowledge of what their capacity is and what's been communicated and taught to them is really important and gives us context to be able to use them appropriately and place them in positions to be successful until they start to place themselves in those positions, because not everyone comes in at the same level of experience, same level of education. And so it's important that we help guide them as well. And so that curriculum is built out over the course of the semester and ultimately builds to this kind of culmination project of multiple training cycles that are built by our interns and presented to individual or small groups of our staff and reviewed with them, critiqued, updated, and revamped based on the suggestions provided to them, to the point where they leave here with a series of progressive training programs for this hypothetical athlete. And so it's a sport of their choice. It's male or female. It's specifics about what year they are, what their limitations are, what their abilities are, and so on. And they build that training program out and review it with us and receive really critical feedback in a positive and constructive way, but critical feedback about where they maybe hit the mark and where they maybe missed the mark and other factors to consider. And so all of that builds to something that isn't just here's a sheet of paper, here's a whiteboard, let's write the workout up on a whiteboard. It needs to be something that's progressive in nature, and they need to start to get familiar with it sooner rather than later, because ultimately, you know as well as I do, that's the demand and the root element of what our job is as practitioners, to be able to deliver sound training programs that are progressive in nature to help prepare them for sport and mitigate the chance of injury. And so all of those factors go into what makes up our curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so Joe does a great job of delivering that. Trevor's been really integral, and all of us have played a varied role over the years based on the intern class that comes in and how the schedule shakes out and who they maybe spend more time with organically based on a variety of different factors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've already said the words confidence and competence twice already, but I really think reflecting on my own experience and then also speaking with intern coaches that have since left here, Marquette, is that to be able to step away from an internship program with a well-reviewed, well-constructed, periodized program gives you a huge amount of confidence to say, I can do this, and I have done this, and I understand the shortcomings that I had originally when I had version 1 of this, and where it is now, and much more happy with that. And obviously it takes a long time to continue to refine and cut the chaff that doesn't really work in your program. And then when you move on, you might find that the program that you made there doesn't really work in this new D3 weight room that's perhaps much more under-resourced. But at least you've had the experience of critically thinking and engaging in that process. So I think it's super important that those young coaches do have something, and as well something that they can almost add to a professional portfolio that they can use as application material at the end there as well. So that's really good.
Spot on. That's spot on. It's a critical thinking skills that go a long way in setting yourself up for success, not only in our field in strength and conditioning, but I imagine in a wide variety of fields, certainly within athletics and beyond, if and when time comes for professional. Critical thinking is a tremendous skill set.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. With these coaches that you've developed in your tenure there and you've seen move on, there's now a huge network of people who call U of M home, or their initial starting point, just like me, for strength and conditioning. Maybe if you could touch on a couple of former interns, maybe from recent past, maybe from the distant past, whoever kind of comes to top of mind, as to what were they like when they were with you, and why do you think they've moved on to be successful?
Yeah, that's a question that I spend a lot of time thinking about, because I take great pride in it. I think we all do. I think we take pride in the people that we help to develop, and we help to kind of play a small part in their story and their evolution as professionals. And so when I say that I'm proud, I am. Heck, I'm not to get too sappy, but I'm proud of you and what you've done on Marquette and what you're doing with My Momentum. It's awesome to see. And so there's I know that there's just a sliver of Michigan and what Michigan did for you that played into what you've accomplished. But that sliver is something that I think is really impactful for me, and I find value and fulfillment in. And so that's why we commit so much time to our interns and to our internship program, because you're a representation of Michigan, you're a representation of our staff, and ultimately you're a representation of yourself. And so we want to help people along the way. And so the people, honestly, I try to keep a little bit of a spreadsheet, because as the years go by, you start to lose track of what years what classes people came from and who overlapped to who. So it's a little bit easier to just kind of glance down at that spreadsheet. But at this point, there's about 50 individuals, about 50 individuals that are actively practicing in the fitness industry. Some of them are in professional athletics, some are in tactical, some are in collegiate, some are in the private sector. Heck, Carrie Pierce was the fittest American woman 3 years in a row. Or check that, 3 years in her CrossFit career, and still is actively engaged. And that's someone that we're proud of as both a student athlete alum and a gymnast that I work with, but also a former strength and conditioning alum. And so some of the people that jump out, I'll talk a little bit actually about a connection that we have with West Virginia University and Dr. Guy Hornsby, who's been a really great colleague for us, a few hundred miles away. They run a heck of a GA program there in partnership with some local high schools. And we've now helped to send 4 former interns down there to complete their graduate assistantship with Dr. Hornsby. And so that relationship that we built with Guy has been really strong and really impactful, not only for us as a department and somebody that we can turn to as a professional and a PhD in the field, but as somebody that we can help send our interns to and help them get their foot in the door until they can kick the door down themselves. Because ultimately that's what it's about, right? We can help people get their foot in the door, and then it's on you to kick the door down. We can't kick it down for you. And so that relationship has been really positive and impactful, and we've helped to send 4 people there. The first being Billy Cedar, who most recently was at Clemson University before a bit of a career pivot here in the last year or two. And so Billy was our first former intern that went to West Virginia with Dr. Hornsby, Michigan alum, sound engineering degree, reached out to me via LinkedIn to grab coffee. And so I responded, we grabbed coffee. And the story goes, he came on as an intern and ended up getting connected to Dr. Hornsby through us. The second one was Bailey Jesseland, who's now a full-time assistant at IU, and I think has a video on My Momentum as well.
Yes.
So Bailey went on to West Virginia, completed his master's, spent a bit of time at Illinois before landing at IU. And then Wes Gall, Michigan alum, completed his GA with Dr. Hornsby after he finished with us as an intern, is now at ETSU with Dr. Stone and Meg Stone, completing his PhD. So he's a bit smarter than all of us. And most recently is Hannah Swerpel, who's GA herself now, and somebody that I connected with through some guest lecturing I do on campus while she was a Michigan undergrad and teaching assistant, that slowly started to figure out that she wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach and pursue that. So that connection with Dr. Hornsby was helpful in helping her get her foot in the door before she was able to kick it down herself. So that's just a kind of small snapshot of a kind of unique, fun, interesting connection that really developed from Mike's relationship with Dr. Stone from many years ago when they both worked overseas, and has just kind of snowballed into this dynamic and connection that we have with Dr. Hornsby and so on. So it's been really fun to be able to direct some good interns his way. And I know that they've all really valued their relationship and their connection with him. And it's just a heck of a pipeline that we started to create.
Yeah, 100%. So if there's anyone who's watching this video or listening to it and is multitasking, you should come back and pay attention. Network trumps experience, which trumps certifications. And that's the way it's been and continues to be at the moment. And so, not saying that you should look to take advantage of anybody, but you should definitely identify programs that have network availability for you, that if you do a good job and you do commit with attention to detail, then that network is there and it's waiting. And so to have a pipeline just like you guys have with Western Virginia is incredible. And it's great to see, you know, if for some reason the product of the coaches being put out at the University of Michigan didn't meet the standard of Guy Hornsby, then he would probably not welcome them back. But clearly they have been, and that pipeline is healthy and it's strong. So yeah, that's a really, really nice success story to hear, and something to really push us towards our last question, I guess, which is, with new and incoming intern coaches at the University of Michigan this year and forward, what do you look for? Like, if an application comes across your desk and you open it up, how might a young professional be able to convey themselves that you would say, this is somebody that we're interested in?
So I think about that question quite literally, and I've seen plenty of resumes over the years for a variety of different positions. And so my first reaction and thought process on a resume is, what can we do to help Michigan, and what can they do to help us? Right. So it's this question that we ask themselves. And so the literal physical document that I'm looking at is kind of where I start. Where have they missed the mark on their resume? What can I help them improve? Is it an extra space between a comma? Is it two spaces instead of a single space? Is it a font difference in either sizing or font style, and inconsistencies throughout? Is it using 2023 one spot and then just 21 with an asterisk in front, or excuse me, apostrophe in front to indicate a shortened year? I quite literally look at the resume and figure out, what can I do to help them? Is the content of their resume good enough for us to move forward? And what can I help them with just on that physical document? Because in many ways, your resume, your LinkedIn, all that information speaks to who you are, your attention to detail, and so on. And so that's where, honestly, immediately where my brain goes. And so it's, what can we do to help them, and what can they contribute to us, and how can this be a mutually beneficial relationship? Because ultimately that's what it is. This is the educational opportunity for the intern, largely for the intern. It's also educational for us on, where are we missing the mark on our curriculum? Where are we missing the mark on how we recruit and retain these people? Where are we really strong, and where can we just move and tweak to be a little bit stronger in those areas? So it's this constant evolution and conversation that we each kind of have internally, and then amongst our staff, about what is our internship, and how can we make it more optimal for the people that are interested in pursuing it and looking to move forward in the field. And so my first thought is that. My second thought is, what are the tendencies and trends that we're starting to see from people that are applying for internships, typically undergrad or recent undergrad graduates, maybe master students, maybe career changes. Is there a trend that we start to identify that maybe they're trying to get in a little bit earlier, or maybe there's quite a bit of career pivots and career change individuals that are looking to break into strength and conditioning from another sector, or another sector of athletics, or something totally different? And can we put our finger on that? Could we get a pulse on that? And then I'd say the last part is it's kind of a fun game to play. Okay, this person is at X institution. Who do we know at X institution that's in one of our networks or in our community that we can tap into to get some insight and feedback on this individual as we look to potentially work them into our internship. And can we lean on them whether they're a reference or not? Ultimately, your reference list is it's important, but people will be a reference for you beyond any list that you can ever put together because of the connections of the relationships that they have pre-existing that maybe you have no idea exist. And so I learned that the hard way as an intern, having applied for GA positions before landing at Michigan, when somebody pulled me into their office at Baylor and said, I got a call from this person at this institution about a job you applied for. And I thought to myself, but you weren't on my reference list. As I'm standing in her office, having spent 2 or 3 months with her, working really closely with her, I thought about the fact that, and that was my light bulb moment where I realized that my reference list is what it is, and those people will mean something to me, and I think speak as highly about my abilities as anyone I can think of. But oftentimes we're going to turn to the people that we know that we're most comfortable with having direct and transparent conversations with to be able to get valuable information and insight on the people that we're looking to hire. And so when I talk about networking, it's about the relationship building, and it's about realizing that anyone that you come in connection with might very well end up being a reference for you. And so leaving a positive taste in their mouth about what your capacities are as a professional and as a person, your
Mm-hmm.
hard skills and your soft skills are, outweighs darn near anything else that you can come up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think oftentimes with young professionals that I've mentored, when we look at professional portfolios, resumes, etc., and we talk about references, the first thing that I think of as well, I don't really have a big list of references because I haven't done many internships or showed my personal skill sets to them. But oftentimes it is those personal character references that sometimes sway the decision as to whether we bring person A on or person B on, because we need to make sure that we know this individual, we trust this individual, they have a good moral compass, so I think that that's really important to know that people like yourself, other internship coordinators out in the country, other strength conditioning professionals are looking to assess who you are as a person, not just a professional, because we all know that particularly young coaches, green coaches that are coming into their first internship, we're not expecting you to know hardly anything about strength conditioning, and that's okay. But we are expecting you to be a diligent professional and a good person as well, first and foremost. Well, that's perfect. Obviously, anyone who's still watching this video or listening to it can find out more details about the University of Michigan's Olympic Sports Strength Conditioning Internship, their coach development program there on the page below. As the semesters roll over, the dates, durations, and deadlines will be updated, and you can see below at the expansive network that they already have, which I'm sure will continue to grow, just how successful and strong and healthy this program is. So Coach Lew Porchiazzo, thank you so much for your time and your attention to all the intern coaches that you've helped along the way, including myself. So thank you for that. And we're looking forward to bringing more attention to this internship program in years to come.
Sure, Stu, I appreciate it, and really thanks to you, one for my momentum, and two for the work that you did with this well over a decade ago now, with a little bit more hair on top of your head at the time, and but the same energy and enthusiasm and professionalism that you have today, just in an expanded capacity. And so, proud to call you part of our internship alumni class, and look forward to continuing to work alongside you as a peer and a colleague in this field.